Science fiction and horror have been intertwined since Frankenstein attempted to use scientific research to reanimate a corpse. There's something about the mysteries that science uncovers, and what it can't explain can sometimes become truly horrifying. From alien invasions to killer robots, all the way through cosmic horrors reshaping our reality. Humans fear the unknown and always think of the worst case scenarios. Before we begin, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. At no cost to you, every new subscriber we get helps us achieve our goal and motivates us to create more content for you. With that being said, I'm your host, Jamie, and here are 10 must-see sci-fi horror films. Number 1. Alien. Released all the way back in 1979, this film holds up incredibly well, and that is mostly due to the amazing practical effects and set designs they did. Helmed by the impeccable Ridley Scott, the director who brought us such classics as Blade Runner, Gladiator, Black Hawk Down, and more, delivers to us one of the most thrilling and terrifying space adventures ever to be put to screen. The cast is downright perfect. Each character feels truly alive and lived in. The alien creature, known as a xenomorph, is brilliant, displaying its full life cycle throughout the film, without ever feeling like it's being overly expository or dragging the film down in any way. And the score is appropriately moody and keeps you at the edge of your seat when the chaos begins. The film also boasts one of the all-time most badass final girls, with Ellen Ripley, who originally in the script wasn't actually written as a man or woman, which really works out to its advantage. If you've somehow missed this movie, don't wait. Go check it out. Number 2. Pitch Black. The first major blockbuster film that helped catapult Vin Diesel to stardom, the film follows a transport ship en route to a new colony. Along with several travelers, it also houses the galaxy's most dangerous criminal, Riddick, who had an operation done to his eyes called shining, which allows him to see in the dark. This, of course, comes in handy when the ship crash lands on a remote planet that quickly becomes engulfed in a months-long night cycle. Not to mention the native alien species who only live in the dark and come out to hunt once the long night begins. Not everything in this film holds up, but it does deliver on the scares and the gruesome deaths, as the creatures are quite fast and are equipped with razor-sharp talons and teeth. It even plays with the final girl trope by killing her off right near the end, making it one of those rare horror films where a man survives. Definitely check it out if you haven't seen it. It received 2 sequels, including a prequel video game and an animated spin-off, and supposedly it's getting a reboot in 2026. Number 3. Life. A film basically inspired by Alien, it follows a group of astronauts aboard the International Space Station when they discover extraterrestrial life on Mars, in the form of a single-celled organism. As they observe it, it evolves quickly into a multi-celled organism and continues to evolve as it is experimented on. They nickname it Calvin and show it off to a group of school children, and everything seems great and wonderful. However, during one of the experiments, it feels provoked and reacts violently, setting the stage for the rest of the film. They try to kill it unsuccessfully, and it continues to grow and evolve with each attempt they make on it, even launching it out into the void of space, only for it to find a way to float back to the station and enter through some vent. The ending is somewhat clever, as the remaining astronauts think they have a way to keep the creature at bay, while at least one of them safely escapes back to Earth. But at some point, the alien creature figured out what they were up to and sabotaged one of the escape pods, steering the one it was trapped in back to Earth instead. It ends with a group of fishermen stumbling upon the capsule and unleashing it on Earth. Sadly, there hasn't been any news on a sequel. I assume Calvin just went on a rampage and swallowed up all of humanity, but it would have been cool to see play out. Either way, check it out if you haven't seen it. Number 4. Under the Skin. This one is majorly different from the other films on this list. as we almost develop sympathy for the alien creature that's shown in the film. Disguised in a skin suit that's designed to look like an attractive woman, played by Scarlett Johansson, she explores the various facets of humanity, mostly encountering strange men that she seduces and traps with sex. While devouring them? I'm not quite sure, as we don't see what happens to the bodies, just what happens in the void space. I personally always took it as she swallows their souls, essentially. Everything they are, like she's gathering it for intelligence, rather than feeding on them physically. Of course, at one point, picking up strange men goes wrong, as one of them tries to violently rape her and rips a tear in her skin suit, revealing her true self. She is then beaten and burned, and this ends her journey. The film is eerie, with almost too real conversations sometimes, and an unsettling musical score. If you're looking for a somewhat artistic approach to what an alien infiltration would look like, this film is a definite must-watch. Number 5. Annihilation. With the more recent explosion of multiverse and alternate reality films hitting screens all over, this is one of the first films to start that craze, at least in recent decades. Annihilation revolves around a group of scientists sent to explore and find a missing science team that disappeared in a kind of strange bubble that formed on the Earth, and has been steadily growing larger. Things inside the bubble begin to change, morph, evolve strangely, creating its own pocket reality. In my opinion, I always saw this bubble as sort of a womb, growing some cosmic entity inside of it. And since it's touching other life forms, they change with it as it begins to form and whatnot. Just like in real life, if you're pregnant, any substances you take into your body become part of that child. I don't want to spoil too much, but there are some terrifying moments, and also some truly wondrous scenes that will leave your jaw agape. Released by Paramount in 2018, it's still available for streaming, so make sure to check it out if you're in the mood for a mind-bending sci-fi thriller. Number 6. Event Horizon. One of the major influences to the Dead Space franchise, it surprisingly holds up extremely well for a film that is almost 3 decades old. The Event Horizon, a science vessel sent to the far reaches of space for experimentation, tests out a brand new way to travel faster than light, called the gravity drive. Essentially, it generates a miniature black hole, which allows it to slip through time and space and appear at any designated coordinates. Of course, they didn't realize that when you leave our reality, that there could be others to go through. And so years later, when the Event Horizon finally shows up again, a crew of space mariners and the lead scientists on the project go to investigate. They quickly regret the mission as they find out the ship actually ended up traveling through some kind of hell dimension, as disaster upon disaster begin to fall on the crew and the ship. It's rather short. Many of the more brutal scenes were unfortunately cut from the film due to controversy with the MPAA. So many people are still hoping for a director's cut, or even a sequel. Given how much time that has passed, that is unlikely. But as I stated before, you always have Dead Space if you want to continue that kind of atmosphere. Number 7. The Thing. I've talked about this film quite a bit, and that's because it is a genuine masterpiece of science fiction horror. The gruesome scenes, the realistic characters, the paranoia and isolation that just ooze through the screen. All of it culminates in one of the greatest nihilistic endings ever put to film. The Thing was originally blasted by critics for being shock horror. It has since been recognized as the brilliant film it is and become a cult favorite amongst horror diehards everywhere. However, if you haven't seen it somehow, what are you waiting for? Just avoid the 2011 reboot prequel, as even though the story wasn't terrible, it was bogged down heavily by modern horror tropes and bad CG that will leave you cringing and missing what could have been. Number 8. Coherence. Another multiverse-style film. I really like this one. Highly underrated, it starts off very simply as a group of lifelong friends meet for dinner, just as a comet passes by Earth. Somehow, this causes a split in reality, as multiple alternate timelines merge onto one another. When the power goes out, several of the guests leave the house to find out what's going on, but not all of the same guests return home. It becomes a bit confusing by the end, of who ended up in whose reality, even though we do know that Emily is definitely not in her original timeline, as she quite literally takes the place of another version of herself. But the overall film is just eerie and horrifying on a very subconscious level. The more you think about it, the more dread it builds in your mind. Kind of like the Mandela effect. What if all of those are signs that some of us ended up in the wrong reality just by happenstance? Either way, if this piques your interest, I highly recommend it. It's well acted, and the ending is a real kick in the face. Number 9, The Terminator. While the later sequels in the franchise went down the more action-packed route, the original Terminator film was actually written as a horror movie. James Cameron is known for having a fear of the world one day being taken over by technology, and he uses this fear in expert quality, creating a deadly cyborg that has one purpose in its life: to hunt down humans. If you really think about it, it's basically a slasher film, even though the Terminator itself loves using guns more than anything. You've got the final girl in Sarah Connor, played with doe-eyed determination by Linda Hamilton, and her protector, Kyle Reese, played by Alien's favorite, Michael Biehn. I don't think I need to break down the story here, as even most people who haven't seen it know what it's about. But I think it definitely needed to be on this list, because so many people forget its horror roots. Number 10, Sphere. Based on the novel of the same name by Michael Crichton, the same author who brought us Jurassic Park and Congo, it sees a mysterious ship crash into the ocean. And years later, when it's discovered on the seafloor, the military begins to investigate. Gives me some Major the Abyss vibes. However, unlike that film, there is no alien at the center of this tale. Instead, the ship that crashed was built by us, from the future, and it time traveled into the past. What's cool is the idea of a paradox is played with here, in that since the ship itself has no idea what caused them to travel into the past, that means either no one survived, or no one ever recorded the truth. It also borrows a bit from 2001's A Space Odyssey, in having the ship's artificial intelligence becoming sentient, and then being isolated for centuries, has grown unstable. With a stacked cast and some very interesting concepts and themes, this film definitely plays on the fear of what lies in the human imagination. And if that's your jam, make sure to check it out. Thanks for checking out the video. What's your favorite sci-fi horror film? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to tap that bell icon to stay up to date with our latest releases. You can reach out to us on Twitter or X at StudiosFat, or chat with us on Discord, linked in the description. I've been your host, Jamie. Remember, in space, no one can hear you scream.